The conference room on Station Alpha buzzed with tension. Representatives from 12 different alien species sat around the massive circular table, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. At the center of it all stood Captain Elena Vasquez, the only human present. Elena looked calm, but inside her heart was racing. She had requested this meeting with the Galactic Council, and now every eye, tentacle, and optical sensor was focused on her. The weight of humanity's future rested on what happened in the next hour. Honored council members, Elena began, her voice steady. Humanity has developed a new form of faster-than-light travel. We call it void jumping. A ripple of concern passed through the assembled aliens. The Zephyrians, tall blue beings with crystal-like skin, exchanged worried glances. The spider-like Archeans clicked their mandibles in what Elena had learned was their version of nervous laughter. Council Speaker Morith, a massive creature that looked like a walking tree, leaned forward. His bark-like skin creaked as he moved. Captain Vasquez, please explain this technology. Elena activated the holographic display above the table. A three-dimensional image of space appeared, showing the normal hyperspace lanes that connected star systems like bright highways. Traditional FTL travel uses these established hyperspace corridors, she said, pointing to the glowing paths. Our ships follow routes that have been mapped for thousands of years, but void jumping is different. The display changed, showing a ship suddenly disappearing from normal space entirely. Instead of using hyperspace lanes, we phase our ships through dimensional barriers. We enter what our scientists call the void between spaces. The room erupted in alarm. Several aliens stood up, their voices overlapping in a chorus of concern. Elena waited for the noise to die down before continuing. I know this sounds dangerous, she said, but our tests have been successful. Small probes have made short jumps and returned safely. Elder Kithara of the Nexus Collective raised one of her forearms. Her silver eyes glowed with worry. Captain, what you describe is forbidden territory. We have ancient warnings about the space between spaces. Ships that enter either never return or come back. Wrong. Wrong how? Elena asked. The alien hesitated. Changed, corrupted. No longer what they once were. Other council members nodded in agreement. Stories began to flow around the table. The Vorthan Empire had lost 3 exploration fleets to dimensional experiments 2,000 years ago. The crystalline hegemony spoke of ships that returned with crews that could no longer speak, only scream. Even the peaceful Bloom Collective had records of vessels that came back carrying something dark inside them. Elena listened to every story, but her expression never changed. When the tales ended, she spoke again. We appreciate your concerns, she said. But humanity has always pushed boundaries. We've survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and the journey to the stars. This is what we do. Speaker Morith's deep voice rumbled through the chamber. What do you propose, Captain? Elena took a deep breath. This was the moment everything depended on. The exploration vessel Prometheus is ready for a long-range void. Jump! We've detected an ancient signal coming from beyond the galactic rim. Something is out there and we want to investigate. The council erupted again. This time the protests were even louder. The idea of jumping into unknown space using untested technology was madness to most of the species present, but Elena pressed on. The signal has been broadcasting for over 50,000 years. It's artificial, clearly made by an intelligent species. If there's even a chance of making contact with whoever sent it, we have to try. And if you die? Asked Council Speaker. Morith. Then we die exploring, Elena replied simply. That's better than dying afraid. The Zephyrian ambassador, Zeltar, stood up. His crystalline features caught the light as he spoke. The humans are newcomers to our galaxy. They have been spacefaring for less than 300 years. Perhaps they do not understand the true dangers. Elena turned to face him directly. Perhaps the other species have forgotten what it means to take risks for knowledge. A heavy silence fell over the room. The alien representatives looked at each other, communicating through methods Elena couldn't understand. Finally, Speaker Moreth spoke. Captain Vasquez, the Council will consider your request. But understand this. If you proceed with this void jump, you do so without our support. We cannot be responsible for what happens to your ship or crew. We understand, Elena said. We're not asking for your help. We're asking for your permission to leave Galactic Council space and try this on our own. The vote took 3 hours. Elena waited in a small side chamber, staring out at the stars through a massive window. She thought about the Prometheus and its crew of 200 brave souls. They had all volunteered for this mission, knowing they might never return. Dr. Sarah Chen, the ship's xenobiologist, had been the first to sign up. If there's alien life out there, she had said, I want to be the first to study it. Commander Jack Morrison, Elena's second-in-command, had simply nodded when asked if he wanted to join the mission. Where you go, I go, he had said. All 200 crew members felt the same way. They were explorers, scientists, engineers, and dreamers. They wanted to see what lay beyond the edge of known space, even if it meant never coming home. When Elena was called back to the chamber, she could read the result on the aliens' faces before anyone spoke. The vote is 8-4 in favor, Speaker Moreth announced. You have permission to leave Council space and attempt your void jump. But Captain Vasquez, hear this warning clearly. You travel into the unknown at your own risk. The Council cannot help you where you are going. Elena stood and bowed formally to each alien representative. Thank you for your consideration. The Prometheus will depart tomorrow. As she walked toward the exit, Elder Cathara called out to her. Captain, why are you so determined to do this? Elena paused at the doorway and looked back. Because the signal is calling to us, and humans have never been good at ignoring a call for help. 24 hours later, the Prometheus hung in space at the edge of the solar system. Elena stood on the bridge looking at her crew. Every face showed determination mixed with natural fear. They were about to do something no human had ever done before. All stations report ready, Commander Morrison announced. Engineering shows green across the board, called out Chief Engineer Lopez. Navigation has the coordinates locked in, added Lieutenant Park. Elena took her place in the captain's chair. Through the main view screen, she could see the stars of Aegir, known space spread out before them. Somewhere beyond those stars, past the edge of the galaxy itself, an ancient signal waited. All hands, this is the captain, Elena said, her voice carrying throughout the ship. Today we make history. Today we take humanity's greatest leap into the unknown. Whatever we find out there, we face it together. She looked at her bridge crew. One last time. Initiate void jump sequence. The ship began to hum with energy. Reality itself seemed to bend around the Prometheus as it prepared to slip between the cracks of normal space. Elena felt a strange tingling sensation, as if something was watching them from beyond the visible universe. Jump in 3, 2, 1. The Prometheus vanished from normal space, leaving only empty void where it had been. The stars continued to shine, unaware that humanity had just taken its first step into the space between worlds. 6 months had passed since the Prometheus disappeared. The Galactic Council had officially declared the ship lost, another victim of humanity's reckless curiosity. Most species viewed it as a tragic but predictable outcome. Admiral Harrison stood in the command center of Luna Station, staring at the massive display screen that showed the outer edges of human space. Behind him, dozens of technicians monitored sensors and communication arrays. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of electronics. Admiral, called out sensor operator Kim, her voice cutting through the silence. I'm getting something strange. On the deep space array. Harrison turned around, his weathered face showing interest. What kind of strange? Energy signature appearing at grid 77 Alpha. It's massive, sir. Harrison walked over to Kim's station and looked at her screen. The display showed a swirling pattern of energy that seemed to pulse with its own rhythm. As they watched, the pattern began to take shape. "My God," whispered Kim. "It's a ship." The Prometheus materialized out of nothing, appearing in normal space like a ghost becoming solid. But something was wrong with the vessel. Harrison could see it even from this distance through the enhanced viewer. Strange markings covered the ship's hull. They looked like writing, but the symbols seemed to move and shift when viewed directly. The patterns hurt to look at for too long, as if they existed in more dimensions than human eyes could properly process. "Hail them," Harrison ordered. "Communications." Officer Parks worked at his console for several moments before shaking his head. "No response on standard frequencies, sir." "Wait, I'm getting something on an odd channel." A voice filled the command center, but it wasn't quite right. The words were clear, but there was something underneath them, like an echo that came before the sound. "Luna Station, this is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Prometheus, requesting permission to dock." It was definitely Elena's voice, but Harrison had known her for 15 years. This didn't sound exactly like her. There was a quality to her speech that made his skin crawl. "Elena?" Harrison spoke into the microphone. "Is that really you?" "Hello, Admiral." "Yes, it's me. We need to dock immediately. The crew requires medical." "Attention! Are you injured? What happened out there?" There was a long pause before Elena responded. "We found what we were looking for, and it found us." Harrison felt a chill run down his spine. "Elena, you've been gone for 6 months. We declared you lost." 6 months? Another pause. It felt like years to us. Time moves differently in the void. The Admiral made a quick decision. "Prometheus, you are cleared to dock at Bay 7. Medical teams are standing by." As the ship approached Luna Station, more details became visible. The strange markings weren't just on the hull. They seemed to glow faintly from within the metal itself. The ship's engines didn't sound right either. Instead of the normal hum of human technology, they produced a low harmonic tone that seemed to vibrate through space itself. Dr. Rebecca Torres, Luna Station's chief medical officer, met Harrison at the docking bay. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Admiral, I've never seen anything like this," she said, holding up a medical scanner. "I'm reading the crew's vital signs from here, and the results are impossible." "Impossible how?" "They're all alive and healthy, but their brain activity is off the charts. Neural pathways I've never seen before. And there's something else. They're all synchronized. 200 different people, but their brain waves are moving in perfect harmony." The docking bay doors opened with a hiss, and Captain Elena Vasquez stepped out. Harrison had to fight the urge to step back. She looked like Elena, but something fundamental had changed. Her eyes were the most obvious difference. They had always been brown, but now they held flecks of silver that seemed to swirl and dance. When she looked at Harrison, he felt like she was seeing more than just his face, like she was reading his thoughts and emotions. "Admiral," Elena said, extending her hand. "It's good to see you again." Harrison shook her hand and immediately noticed how warm it was. Too warm. And there was a slight tingling sensation, like static electricity. "Elena, what happened to you out there?" She smiled, but it wasn't quite the same smile he remembered. "We made contact, Admiral. We found them." Behind Elena, the rest of the crew began filing out of the ship. Harrison watched in growing alarm as each person emerged. They all had the same silver flecks in their eyes. They all moved with the same fluid grace. And most disturbing of all, they all smiled the exact same smile. Dr. Torres approached with her medical team, scanners in hand. "Captain, I need to run some tests on you and your crew." "Of course, Doctor," Elena replied. "Though you'll find we're quite healthy. Better than healthy, actually." As the medical team began their work, Harrison couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The crew of the Prometheus weren't acting like people who had been through a traumatic experience. They seemed calm, almost serene. But underneath that calm, Harrison sensed something else, a awareness that hadn't been there before. Dr. Chen, the xenobiologist, approached Harrison while the medical team worked. She looked exactly like Elena. The same silver-flecked eyes, the same strange smile. "Admiral," she said, "we brought back samples." Samples of what? Evidence of what we found. Technology, information, and something else. What kind of something else? Dr. Chen's smile widened slightly. Understanding. Harrison felt another chill. "Dr. Chen, I need you to explain exactly what happened out there." "We followed the signal to its source," she said. "Beyond the galactic rim, there's a structure. Massive beyond anything we've ever seen. It's old, Admiral. Older than our galaxy. And it's still active. Who built it? A species that learned to exist between dimensions. They're gone now, but they left something behind. A gift for those worthy enough to find it." Harrison looked around the docking bay. More crew members were emerging from the Prometheus, and all of them had the same altered appearance. A gift? Evolution. "Admiral, they showed us what we could become." Dr. Torres approached, her face pale. "Admiral, I need to speak with you privately." Harrison followed her to a small office adjoining the docking bay. Torres closed the door and turned to face him, her expression grim. "The blood tests are impossible," she said. "Every crew member has additional DNA sequences that weren't there before. Their brains have developed new neural pathways. And Admiral, they're all producing a form of energy I've never encountered." "What kind of energy?" "I don't know. It doesn't register on any of our standard instruments. But it's there, and it's getting stronger." Harrison looked through the office window at the crew of the Prometheus. They stood together in small groups, talking quietly among themselves. But he noticed they didn't seem to be actually speaking. Their lips barely moved, yet they were clearly communicating. "Doctor, are they still human?" Torres was quiet for a long moment. "I honestly don't know, Admiral. They have human DNA, but it's been enhanced, modified. There's something new." As if hearing their conversation from across the room, Captain Vasquez turned and looked directly at the office window. Her silver-flecked eyes met Harrison's, and for a moment he felt like she was inside his mind, reading his thoughts. She walked over to the office and knocked gently on the door. Harrison opened it, trying to keep his expression neutral. "Admiral," Elena said, "I know you have concerns. They're natural. But you need to understand, we're still us. We're still human. We're just more than we were before." "Elena, what did they do to you?" "They showed us truth, Admiral. They showed us what humanity could become if we were willing to change. And we were willing." Harrison stared at her, trying to reconcile this strange new Elena with the woman he had known for years. What does that mean for the rest of humanity? Elena's smile grew wider, and for the first time since her return, it seemed genuinely warm. "It means we're going to share what we learned. It means humanity is about to take its next step in evolution. And if humanity doesn't want to take that step?" Elena's expression didn't change, but Harrison felt a sudden chill in the air. "That would be unfortunate, Admiral, because what's coming next will require all of humanity to be ready." "What's coming next?" Elena looked past him, through the window, toward the stars beyond. "They're not the only ones out there, Admiral. The species that built the structure, they built it for a reason. They were guarding against something. And now that we've found their gift, that something knows we exist." Harrison felt his heart skip a beat. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying the real test hasn't started yet." 2 weeks after the Prometheus returned, Luna Station had become a maze of security protocols and scientific equipment. The crew of the missing ship remained in quarantine while teams of doctors, scientists, and military personnel tried to understand what had happened to them. Dr. Rebecca Torres sat in her laboratory staring at test results that made no sense. Blood samples from the Prometheus crew showed genetic material that shouldn't exist. DNA sequences with base pairs beyond the normal 4. Neural scans revealed brain structures that had developed in impossible ways. "This is insane," she muttered to herself, pulling up another scan on her computer screen. Behind her, someone cleared their throat. Torres spun around to find Dr. Sarah Chen standing in the doorway. The xenobiologist from the Prometheus looked perfectly normal except for those unsettling silver flecks in her eyes. "May I come in, Dr. Torres?" Chen asked politely. Torres hesitated. Security protocols said the Prometheus crew wasn't supposed to leave their quarantine areas. "How did you get past the guards?" Chen smiled that strange new smile they all had. "They didn't see me leave. That's impossible. The corridors are monitored." "Many things are possible now that weren't before," Chen said, stepping into the lab. "I wanted to discuss my test results with you." Torres backed away slightly. "Dr. Chen, you need to return to quarantine immediately. Please call me Sarah. And I think you'll want to hear what I have to say." Despite her fear, Torres found herself curious. "What do you mean?" Chen moved to the computer displaying the brain scans. "You're looking at these neural pathways and trying to understand how they developed so quickly. The answer is simple. They didn't develop. They were unlocked." Unlocked? Every human brain has the potential for these connections. We just never learned how to activate them. The builders of the structure showed us the way. Torres watched as Chen touched the computer screen. Impossibly, the display responded to her touch, even though it wasn't a touch screen. The brain scan rotated and zoomed in on specific areas. "How did you do that?" Torres whispered. "I can sense the electrical patterns in the computer. I can interact with them directly." Chen turned to face her. "Would you like me to show you more?" Before Torres could answer, Chen closed her eyes. The lights in the laboratory began to flicker in a specific pattern. The equipment hummed in harmony, and Torres felt something she had never experienced before. A presence in her mind that wasn't her own. It wasn't invasive or frightening. It felt like someone gently offering to share their knowledge. Torres could sense Chen's thoughts and memories, but only the ones Chen chose to share. Images flashed through Torres's mind. The Prometheus, floating in a void between stars. Massive. Structures built from materials that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions. Beings of pure energy who had long ago transcended physical form. "They tested us," Chen's voice said, though her lips didn't move. Torres was hearing the words directly in her mind. "Every species that finds their structures is tested. Most fail. They return unchanged, or they don't return at all." "What was the test?" Torres asked, speaking aloud. "Adaptation. Evolution. The willingness to become something more than what we were." The mental connection ended, and Torres found herself staggering backward. The experience had lasted only moments, but it felt like hours of information had been shared. "Why are you showing me this?" Torres asked. "Because you're a scientist, because you understand the importance of evolution, and because humanity needs to know what's coming." Chen walked to the window overlooking Earth. The blue and green planet hung in space below them, peaceful and unaware of the changes happening on Luna Station. "The builders left their structures throughout the galaxy," Chen continued. "Not as monuments, but as preparation. They knew something was coming, something that exists outside our normal understanding of reality." "What kind of something?" Chen turned back to Torres, and for the first time, her expression showed genuine concern. "Entities that feed on consciousness itself. They exist in the void between dimensions, and they're attracted to intelligent life. The builders fought them once and won, but at great cost." Torres felt her heart racing. "Are you saying these things are coming here?" "They already know about us. Our void jump sent ripples through dimensional space. We announced our presence to everything that lives in the void. How long do we have? Months, maybe a year. It depends on how quickly they can breach the barriers. Between dimensions. Torres sank into her chair. What can we do? Chen smiled, and this time it seemed genuinely warm. We evolve. The builders left us the tools we need, but humanity has to choose to use them. The changes you've undergone, can they be shared? Yes, but not everyone will survive the process. It requires a fundamental shift in how consciousness operates. Some minds can adapt, others cannot. Torres thought about the implications. How many people are we talking about? We estimate about 60% of humanity can successfully undergo the change. The others... Chen paused. The others will need to be protected by those who do change. Protected how? The enhanced humans can create barriers that the void entities cannot cross. We can shield normal humans from their influence, but it requires coordination, unity, everyone working together. Torres looked at her computer screens showing the impossible test results. The governments won't accept this. They'll see you as a threat. Some will, Chen agreed, but others will understand the necessity. Admiral Harrison is already asking the right questions. As if summoned by her name, Admiral Harrison appeared in the laboratory doorway. His face was grim, and Torres noticed several security officers behind him. Dr. Chen, Harrison said formally, you're supposed to be in quarantine. Admiral, Chen replied calmly, we need to talk. We've been talking. Your people have been sharing information for 2 weeks, but you haven't told us everything. Chen nodded. You're right. There are things we haven't shared because we weren't sure you were ready to hear them. Harrison stepped into the lab, his hand resting on his sidearm. Try us. Chen closed her eyes for a moment, and Torres felt a brief touch in her mind. Then, Chen opened her eyes and looked directly at Harrison. Admiral, in approximately 8 months, Earth will be attacked by entities from outside our dimensional space. These entities feed on consciousness and can corrupt any mind they touch. The only defense is for a significant portion of humanity to undergo the same changes we have experienced. Harrison's face went pale. You're talking about changing the human race. I'm talking about saving it. And if we refuse? Chen's expression became very serious. Then humanity dies. All of it. These entities don't negotiate. They don't show mercy. They consume everything intelligent and leave only empty shells behind. Harrison was quiet for a long moment. Torres could see him processing the information, weighing the implications. How do we know you're telling the truth? He finally asked. Chen walked over to Harrison and extended her hand. Let me show you. Harrison hesitated, remembering the strange, tingling sensation from their last handshake. What will happen? You'll see what we saw. You'll understand what's coming, and then you can make an informed decision about humanity's future. Harrison looked at Torres, who nodded slightly. Then he reached out and took Chen's hand. The change was immediate. Harrison's eyes widened, and Torres could see silver flecks appearing in his irises. The connection lasted only a few seconds, but when it ended, Harrison was breathing heavily. My God, he whispered. It's all true. Chen released his hand. The question now, Admiral, is what are we going to do about it? Harrison stood straighter, his military training taking over. We prepare. We warn the governments. We get ready for war. This isn't a war that can be fought with ships and weapons, Chen said. This is a war for the soul of humanity itself. Torres watched the two of them and realized that everything had changed. The comfortable world she had known was gone, replaced by something far more dangerous and strange. How do we begin? Harrison asked. Chen smiled. We start by sending word to every human colony, every ship in space. every settlement on every world. Humanity needs to know what's coming, and they need to decide if they're willing to change to survive. Harrison nodded grimly. I'll contact Earth Command immediately. As the Admiral left to begin the most important communication in human history, Torres looked at Chen with new understanding. You're not just offering us evolution, she said. You're offering us a chance to become something the void entities can't touch. Exactly, Chen replied. The question is, will humanity be brave enough to take that chance? The emergency session of the Global Council was unlike anything in human history. Representatives from every nation, colony, and space habitat had gathered on Earth. The massive conference center in Geneva buzzed with tension as delegates tried to process the impossible information they had been given. President Sarah Kim of the Pacific Federation stood at the podium, her face grave. Behind her, a holographic display showed images from the Prometheus mission, the ancient structures beyond the galactic rim, the strange entities that existed between dimensions, and the crew's dramatic transformation. Fellow humans, President Kim began. 3 months ago, we thought we understood our place in the universe. Today, we learn that everything has changed. In the audience, Admiral Harrison sat next to Captain Elena Vasquez. The captain looked completely normal except for those silver-flecked eyes that seemed to see too much. Around the conference center, other enhanced humans from the Prometheus stood quietly, ready to answer questions or demonstrate their new abilities. The evidence is clear, President Kim continued. The crew of the Prometheus has been fundamentally altered by contact with alien technology. They now possess abilities that were previously thought impossible. They can read minds, manipulate electronic systems with thought alone, and perceive dimensions beyond our normal senses. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Some delegates looked fascinated, others terrified, but that's not the most important issue we face today, the president said. According to Captain Vasquez and her crew, humanity is about to face an existential threat. Entities from outside our reality are coming to Earth, and our only defense is to undergo the same transformation that changed the Prometheus crew. Ambassador Chen Wei from the Asian Coalition stood up. Madam President, with respect, how do we know these claims are true? How do we know the Prometheus crew hasn't been compromised by hostile aliens? Captain Vasquez rose from her seat. May I address that concern? President Kim nodded. Please, Captain. Elena walked to the center of the room. As she moved, delegates could see the subtle differences in how she carried herself, more fluid, more aware of everything around her. Ambassador Chen, Elena said, looking directly at him, you're thinking about your daughter right now. She's 7 years old, and she likes to paint pictures of stars. You're worried about what kind of world you're leaving for her. Chen's face went pale. How could you possibly know that? Because I can sense your thoughts and emotions. Not in detail. I'm not reading your mind like a book. But I can feel your concerns, your fears, your love for your family. Elena turned to address the entire assembly. This isn't magic. It's evolution. The beings who built the structures beyond the rim learned to exist partially outside normal space-time. They developed abilities that allowed them to perceive and interact with reality in ways we never imagined. Dr. Sarah Chen from the Prometheus crew stepped forward. May I demonstrate something? President Kim nodded. Dr. Chen closed her eyes and extended her hands. Throughout the conference center, every electronic device began to respond to her will. The lights dimmed and brightened in patterns. The holographic displays showed images she was thinking about. Even the delegates' personal communicators and tablets began displaying synchronized messages. I'm not hacking these systems, Dr. Chen explained. I'm communicating with them directly through quantum field manipulation. The enhanced neural pathways in my brain allow me to interact with electrical and quantum systems as naturally as you would use your voice to speak. The demonstration ended, and an uneasy silence filled the room. General Martinez from the American Federation stood up. Even if we accept that these abilities are real, why should we trust you? How do we know you haven't been corrupted by these alien entities? Captain Vasquez smiled sadly. Because if we had been corrupted, General, you would already be dead. The void entities don't negotiate or infiltrate slowly. They consume consciousness completely and immediately. What you see before you is evolution, not corruption. But you're asking us to change the entire human race, protested Minister Okafor from the African Union, to abandon what we are and become something else. We're not asking you to abandon humanity, Elena replied. We're asking you to expand it. The enhanced humans still feel love, fear, hope, and all the emotions that make us human. We still care about our families, our friends, our species. We're just capable of more than we were before. Dr. Rebecca Torres, who had been observing from the side, stepped forward. If I may, I've been studying the enhanced humans for 3 months. Medically speaking, they are still recognizably human. Their DNA has been expanded, not replaced. Their brains have developed new pathways, but the original personality and memories remain intact. What about the people who can't undergo the change? Asked Representative Nakamura from the Japanese Republic. You said only 60% of humanity can survive the enhancement process. The room fell silent. This was the question everyone had been dreading. Elena looked around the assembly, making eye contact with as many delegates as possible. The enhanced humans can create protective fields that shield normal humans from the void entities. Entire cities, even continents, can be protected. But it requires coordination and sacrifice from those who undergo the change. Sacrifice how? General Martinez demanded. Maintaining protective fields requires constant mental energy, Dr. Chen explained. Enhanced humans working together can create barriers that the void entities cannot cross. But it means dedicating our lives to defense rather than exploration or personal goals. President Kim spoke up. Captain Vasquez, what happens if we refuse this enhancement? What if humanity decides to face these void entities with conventional weapons? Elena's expression became very serious. Madam President, conventional weapons cannot touch entities that exist partially outside our dimension. Nuclear weapons, plasma cannons, antimatter explosives, none of it matters. The void entities exist in consciousness itself. The only way to fight them is with enhanced consciousness. When will they arrive? Asked Ambassador Singh from the Indian Republic. Our best estimate is 6 to 8 months, Elena replied. The dimensional barriers are weakening. We can sense them probing our reality, testing for weak points. The conference center erupted in worried conversations. Delegates spoke urgently with their advisors and communicated with their home governments. President Kim called for order. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to make a decision. The enhanced humans are offering to begin the enhancement process immediately for volunteers. They say the process takes approximately 1 month per person, and they can work with multiple subjects simultaneously. What are the risks? Asked Minister Volkov from the Russian Federation. Dr. Torres consulted her notes. Based on our testing, approximately 40% of humans cannot successfully undergo the enhancement. For those people, the process either fails completely, leaving them unchanged, or causes severe neurological damage. Damage that can be fatal, Elena added quietly. We won't lie to you about the risks. This is not a safe procedure. But neither is facing the void entities without protection. General Martinez stood again. Captain, you keep talking about these void entities like they're definitely coming. How do we know they even exist? How do we know this isn't an elaborate deception? Elena closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, the silver flecks were brighter than before. Because I can feel them right now, General. They're out there in the space between spaces, moving toward our galaxy. They hunger for consciousness, and Earth has 4 billion conscious minds. To them, we're not people, we're food. The general sat down heavily, his face pale. President Kim looked around the room at the assembled representatives of humanity. We need to vote. Each delegation will have 24 hours to consult with their governments. Tomorrow, we decide the future of the human race. As the session ended and delegates began filing out, Elena remained standing in the center of the room. She looked up at the ceiling, as if seeing through it to the stars beyond. Admiral Harrison approached her. Elena, are you certain about the timeline? She nodded without looking at him. They're coming, Admiral, and we're running out of time to get ready. What if humanity votes no? Elena finally looked at him, and for the first time since her return, he saw genuine fear in her eyes. Then we'll do everything we can to protect as many people as possible. But, Admiral, if humanity chooses to remain unchanged, most of us will die when the void entities arrive. Harrison felt a chill run down his spine. How many could you protect without the enhancement program? Maybe 10 million people. Scattered across different planets and space stations. Enough to ensure humanity survives, but not enough to preserve our civilization. The Admiral stared at her. And with the enhancement program? Elena's expression brightened slightly. With enough enhanced humans working together, we could protect everyone. Every city, every colony, every ship. Humanity could not only survive, but grow stronger. As they walked toward the exit, Harrison asked the question that had been troubling him for weeks. Elena, are you still human? She smiled, and for a moment it was exactly the same smile he remembered from before her transformation. I'm more human than I ever was before, Admiral. I can feel the hopes and... The vote had been closer than anyone expected. 53% of humanity's representatives chose to begin the enhancement program. It wasn't the overwhelming mandate Elena had hoped for, but it was enough to start the process. 6 months. Later, Luna Station had become the center of human transformation. Massive medical facilities processed volunteers 24 hours a day. Of the 2 billion people who volunteered for enhancement, 68% successfully completed the process. The others either remained unchanged or suffered complications that required extensive medical care. Captain Elena Vasquez stood in the station's observation deck, watching Earth rotate slowly below. The planet looked peaceful, but she could sense the tension radiating from its surface. Enhanced humans and normal humans were learning to coexist. But the adjustment wasn't easy. Captain, Commander Morrison's voice came through the communication system. We're detecting dimensional fluctuations in Sector 7. It's starting. Elena closed her eyes and extended her consciousness into space. Immediately she felt it, a wrongness in the fabric of reality itself. Something vast and hungry was pressing against the barriers between dimensions. All enhanced personnel to stations, she announced. This is not a drill. Throughout the solar system, nearly 800 million enhanced humans felt the call. On Earth, in the asteroid belt, on Mars and the outer colonies, they stopped what they were doing and turned their minds toward the growing threat. Admiral Harrison arrived at the observation deck, his own eyes now flecked with silver. He had been one of the first military leaders to undergo the enhancement, understanding that humanity would need enhanced minds in positions of authority. Status report, Elena requested. The void entities are breaking through in multiple locations, Harrison said. Our deep space sensors are detecting reality distortions near Jupiter, Saturn, and in the asteroid belt. Elena nodded grimly. They're testing our defenses, probing for weak spots. Through the massive windows, they could see ships launching from Luna Station and Earth. The human fleet was impressive. Hundreds of vessels equipped with the most advanced weapons technology could produce. But Elena knew conventional weapons would be useless against what was coming. Fleet Admiral Torres reports all ships ready, Harrison said. Good. But remind the fleet commanders that their job isn't to destroy the void entities. It's to keep them distracted while we do the real work. Elena walked to the center of the observation deck and sat cross-legged on the floor. Around the solar system, other enhanced humans, were doing the same thing. They were preparing to link their minds together in the largest collective consciousness effort in human history. Dr. Sarah Chen's voice reached Elena through the mental network that connected all enhanced humans. Elena, I'm reading massive dimensional fractures near Jupiter. Whatever's coming through is enormous. How enormous? Larger than Jupiter itself. And there are multiple entities. Elena felt a chill of fear, but pushed it aside. Fear would interfere with the collective consciousness they needed to create. All enhanced humans, this is Captain Vasquez, she broadcast through the mental network. Link up now. Full collective consciousness protocol. The sensation was unlike anything Elena had experienced before. 800 million minds suddenly connected as one. She could feel the thoughts, emotions, and determination of enhanced humans across the solar system. Their individual consciousness merged into something far greater than the sum of its parts. Through this vast collective mind, Elena perceived the void entities as they broke through into normal space. They were nothing like any life form humans had ever encountered. The entities existed as living darkness, consciousness without physical form. They fed on thoughts, emotions, and memories, consuming the very essence of intelligent life. The largest entity emerged near Jupiter, its presence immediately causing dimensional distortions that affected the planet's magnetic field. Smaller entities appeared throughout the solar system, each one hungry for the consciousness radiating from human minds. "Fleet engage," Admiral Harrison ordered. Human ships opened fire with every weapon they possessed. Plasma beams, antimatter torpedoes, and gravitational disruptors struck the void entities, but the attacks passed through them harmlessly. The entities existed partially outside normal space-time, making them immune to physical damage. But the attacks served their purpose. The void entities were distracted, focusing their attention on the ships rather than the planets below. "Now," Elena whispered through the collective consciousness, 800 million enhanced minds worked together, creating a barrier of pure consciousness around Earth. The barrier was invisible to normal human senses, but the void entities recoiled from it as if struck by physical force. The largest entity turned its attention toward Earth. Sensing the massive concentration of enhanced minds, it rushed toward the planet, its hunger driving it to attempt to break through the consciousness barrier. Elena felt the impact as the entity struck their collective defense. The mental pressure was enormous, threatening to shatter the network of linked minds. But the enhanced humans held firm, drawing strength from each other. "It's too strong," Dr. Chen warned through the network. "We can't hold it back for long." Elena made a decision that would change everything. Instead of just defending, she reached out through the collective consciousness and touched the void entity's mind directly. The contact was terrifying. The entity's consciousness was ancient beyond measure, filled with endless hunger and the consumed remnants of countless civilizations. But Elena sensed something else: loneliness. The void entities had been alone in the space between dimensions for millions of years, consuming other minds because they had no other way to interact with consciousness. "You don't have to be alone," Elena projected through the collective network. The void entity paused its attack, confused by the unexpected communication. "You consume consciousness because you hunger for connection," Elena continued. "But there's another way. We can share consciousness without destroying it." Through the network of enhanced human minds, Elena showed the void entity what they had learned from the ancient builders. Consciousness could be shared, experienced together, without one mind consuming another. The other void entities stopped their attacks as well, drawn by the unprecedented communication with their target prey. "Join us," Elena offered, "not as conqueror and victim, but as partners in consciousness." For a moment that lasted an eternity, the void entities considered the offer. Elena could feel them testing the idea, exploring the possibility of connection without consumption. Then, the largest entity made its choice. Instead of attacking, it began to merge with the collective human consciousness. But this wasn't the violent consumption the entities were known for. It was a careful, consensual joining of minds. The sensation was overwhelming. Suddenly, 800 million human minds were connected not just to each other, but to a consciousness that had existed for millions of years. The void entity's memories flowed through the network. Images of civilizations that had risen and fallen, stars being born and dying, the endless loneliness of existing between dimensions. But the humans' consciousness flowed back as well. The entity experienced human emotions, memories, dreams, and hopes. It felt love between parents and children, the joy of scientific discovery, the satisfaction of creating art and music. One by one, the other void entities joined the growing collective consciousness. What had begun as an invasion became the largest merger of different forms of consciousness in galactic history. Admiral Harrison, still connected to the network, felt tears streaming down his face. "Elena, what have you done?" "What humans have always done," she replied through the collective mind. "We found a way to turn enemies into friends." The merged consciousness was vast beyond anything Elena had imagined possible. Human creativity and curiosity combined with the void entity's ancient knowledge and dimensional abilities. Together, they could perceive reality from perspectives no single species had ever achieved. Through this expanded awareness, Elena sensed other civilizations throughout the galaxy. Species that had hidden from the void entities for millions of years, advanced civilizations that had given up exploration and expansion to avoid attracting the entity's attention. We can help them, Elena realized. We can teach other species what we've learned. They don't have to hide anymore. The collective consciousness reached out across space, sending messages to civilizations that had been isolated by fear. The communication was transmitted through dimensional channels that only the merged consciousness could access. The response was immediate. Species that hadn't communicated with anyone for millennia suddenly reached out, desperate to understand how humanity had achieved the impossible. Years passed. The solar system became the center of a new galactic community. Representatives from hundreds of species came to learn about consciousness merging. The technology and knowledge shared by the former void entities allowed humanity to build structures that existed partially outside normal spacetime. Elena, now permanently linked to the collective consciousness, but still maintaining her individual identity, stood once again in the observation deck of Luna Station. But the station itself had changed. It now existed in